Okay, so it's time to get started. The lessons are arranged in the following way. Lessons 1 through 3 focus on workflow of building applications and getting comfortable with how to navigate around the Visual Basic 2005 Express Edition interface. Lessons 4 through 7 will focus on the Visual Basic programming language itself, as well as an introduction to the .NET framework. Lessons 8 through 11 will focus on working with data and then displaying data from data sources like databases and XML files and handling the errors that come up in your application while it's running. And then lesson 12 through 16 will demonstrate the creation of an entire application from the beginning to the end involving design, development, testing, and deploying your application. The application that we'll build in the last 5 lessons will be an RSS reader. And if you're not familiar with the term RSS, that stands for Really Simple Syndication, and it's one of the latest trends on the internet. It allows websites, especially those websites that update their content often, like blogs, to publish a short description of new articles as they're posted on the website. So those websites that update their content often, like blogs, to publish a short description of new articles as they're posted on the website. So users can subscribe to an RSS feed, which is simply a URL on the web that contains the title of the article, the description, and a hyperlink so people can read the actual article. And so to subscribe to a feed, the user will need a program that knows how to interpret an RSS feed and then periodically checks each news feed that the user subscribed to so it can determine if any of his favorite websites have new content available. Many popular websites have these little orange buttons with the word RSS, or sometimes it has the word XML. This lets you know that an RSS feed is available for that website. So let's get started by talking about the basic steps of creating applications. And we'll begin by creating the most simple application we possibly can. All we want to do is create a Windows application, which is also known as a Windows Forms application, and we'll add a single button onto a form. And when the user clicks our button, we'll display a pop-up message that says Hello World. Now, a Hello World application is usually the first program that you build, regardless of the programming language or regardless of the programming tool, because it helps you see the entire workflow of creating a program without having to introduce so much complexity so early into the learning process. So let's begin by using our mouse cursor and going to the File menu and then selecting the New Project option. And whenever we do, a New Project dialog appears, and this allows us to select a template for the type of application we want to build. In this case, we want to select Windows Application, and then also change the name of the application from its default name to something like Hello World. Once we've changed that, then we're going to select the OK button, and now Visual Basic 2005 creates a new project for us with a single form in that project. Now at this point we have a fully functioning Windows application. We didn't have to do anything, it's all automatically created for us. We can use this little button here, the Start Debugging button, the little button that looks like a Run button or a Start button. And let's just run the application right now and see what happens. As you can see, I have a real application. I can resize the application, I can move it around. Notice that it has some of the default attributes that a Windows application has, like the little close button, the expand or the resize, the minimize button. It also has this little control box over here that allows us to size, minimize, close, and so forth, of controls that we can place on our forms. And we can scroll up and down and see all the controls here, and we'll talk about this more in lesson 2 or 3. But what I want to do for right now is to grab a button and drag it from its toolbox area and then drop it onto our form. Okay, to drag it, I just hold down the mouse cursor, and to drop it, I let go. So I've dragged 2 instances of a button on the form. I'm going to delete one of these by making sure it's selected. You can see the selected one with the little handles on it, and then hitting the delete key on my keyboard. So now we're back to one button. Let's run our application one more time and see what happens. Again, we have a fully functional application with a button, and notice that I'm able to click it. I can hold down the button, and notice when I do that, there's like a little grayed out. It looks like a 3-dimensional button where you're pushing down on it and then releasing the button. Okay, so it has different states in that regard, but it still doesn't do anything. And in order for it to do something meaningful, what we're going to have to do is write some code. Now this is a little bit tricky, so watch closely what I'm about to do here. I'm going to double click the button. So I'm going to use my mouse cursor, hover over it, and then I'm going to use my mouse to double click. And when I do, I get a different screen that appears within the Visual Basic Express Edition IDE. And what we have here is what's called a event handler. So whenever somebody clicks our button, we're going to write code that will handle that situation. We're going to talk about event handlers at length in lessons 3 and 4 and throughout the rest of the series. So I don't want to get too wrapped up in that and just yet. But follow along as I write some code that will react to the action that the user has taken of clicking this button. So I'm going to pop open a message box, and to do that I'm going to type in message box dot show. I'm going to use an open parenthesis, and I'm going to use some quotation marks, an open quotation mark, and then I'm going to type in hello world. Then I'm going to put another quotation mark and close the parentheses just like that. And I can even hit the enter key on my keyboard. Okay, so notice now that I have one line of code within my event handler for the button one click event. Now how do I navigate between the form view and this code view? Well, simply put, I can use these tabs at the top. So here, if I use this tab, I'm looking at the design view. I'm looking at the forms designer, and every form has a code view behind it. So I can use the tab view, or I can just double click and it will automatically open it for me as a little bit of a convenience. So now let's run our application by using our run button. And I'm going to click my button, and when I do, notice that I get a little message box that pops open that says hello world. So I can click that, and I can run this multiple times, and we've got a real application. Now admittedly it doesn't do a whole lot, but we've been able to walk through the steps of creating the application, designing the form, and writing code behind an event handler. Now at this point you probably didn't understand everything that I did, and that's okay. We're going to use the remainder of the lessons to really thoroughly inspect everything that just went on here. But I wanted to give you this complete picture of everything that goes along with creating and building an application, as small as it might be. So the next thing that we need to do is save our application, and to do that I can either select the File menu and select Save All, or I can just use a button on my toolbar that says Save All. And when I do, I get this Save Project dialog box. Now this is very important. Your applications are not saved to your hard drive until you explicitly save them. Okay, so if we were to just shut down the machine right now, just hit the off button on our computer, all would be lost. That would be bad. So we want to, very early on, as we're building an application, save the project. And saving the project involves giving it a name. As you can see, we have a default name that we originally gave it whenever we were creating a new project. And then also select a location on our hard drive where that application should be saved. Notice that it'll be saved into the My Documents folder, Visual Studio 2005 Projects, under a directory called Hello World. And you notice here that it also has Create a Directory for the solution. We'll leave that checked for right now. We'll talk about solutions in just a moment. For right now, I'm going to accept all the defaults and then click the Save button on this dialog. And now we've successfully saved this project to our hard drive. So now we can come back the next day or the day, in the future, and make changes to this project and work on it again. So let's do this. Let's go to our file system. The thought of what a project is. A project is an organizational unit that combines all the files that are necessary in order to create an entire application, a .exe file. Also, there's another organizational unit called a solution. You remember whenever we went to go save our project and it asked us, do we want to create a folder for the solution as well? We just left it checked as the default. Yes, we want to create a solution as well. A solution is another organizational construct that allows us to group multiple projects together. Okay, each project would create its own executable file, but those projects might have interdependencies. Now that's a little bit beyond the scope of what we're looking at right now. But if we were to have multiple projects under one organizational unit called a solution, we would have all of those projects listed here within our Solution Explorer. So I just wanted you to be aware of the concept that solutions can contain projects, and projects contain files that create executable files or .dll files. So besides being able to view all the files that are within a given project, the Solution Explorer has another very important purpose within our application development efforts. If we were to close down the tabs within our main area by clicking the Close button off to the right-hand side of each of the tabs, and we needed to get back and work with that particular form again, what we can do is either double-click the representation of that form file within our solutions, our project back into our workspace so we can begin working on it again. Now finally, we're going to be writing a lot of code, and one of the things that I want to introduce fairly early on into your career is this concept of debugging. Now what does it mean to debug? Well, in the most simplest terms that I can put it in, it's the ability for you to step through each line of code as it's executing, or in other words, you can control how quickly or how slowly the code executes, and you can watch as each line of code executes so you can pinpoint problems that occur within your applications. And in order to